Scott Calvin has returned. He's still as cheerful as ever after almost 30 years as Santa Claus, but as the popularity of Christmas fades, so does his magic. The Santa Clauses series is a spin-off of the original 1994 Santa Claus film. Apparently, the creator of the show and actor Tim Allen thinks Disney Plus tricked them into doing the show. Let's find out more about what they have to say. First off, creator Jack Burditt and Tim Allen were tricked into making the Disney Plus series. The Santa Clauses creator Jack Burditt claims the studio misled him and Tim Allen into creating the Disney Plus series. From 1994 through 2006, Allen played a reluctant Santa, whose true name is Scott Calvin, in 3 films, the last of which was the Santa Claus 3: The Escape Clause. The Santa Clauses, a legacy sequel to the famous Christmas franchise, was revealed as a limited series on Disney Plus in January of this year. During an interview with Deadline, Burditt detailed his and Allen's role in the new show. Although Burditt wasn't connected with the previous franchise, Allen was the face of the sitcom Last Man Standing, which Burditt created in 2011. The filmmaker claims that because the two had teamed up together in the past, Disney seemed to know just which threads to pull in order for the duo to rejoin on the Santa Clauses, comparing the situation to being played. Jack shared that he and Tim were lured into signing up for the project by saying that the other is on board while they were not. He said that at one point Allen was told, "Burditt has this idea to do Santa Claus," and he was like, "Really? I don't quite know the timeline. I mean, each of us hearing the other was on board before either one of us was actually on board?" He concluded by saying this is something that happens in Hollywood. What's more, here's what fans can expect from season 1 of the new Santa series. The Santa Clauses premiere offered the enchantment and nostalgia fans had been yearning for since Allen's original films, revealing that if Disney did deceive Burditt and Allen into developing the show, the ploy paid off. Scott's struggle juggling life and family while donning the red suit was predicted in the Santa Claus 3, and the recent show picks it up on that thread and continues with it. With just 2 episodes completed, it's yet to be seen if the rest of the show provides a satisfying send-off for the protagonist, who's looking to leave as the series begins with the premise that his job's starting to catch up with him. Scott's likely to continue his quest for a successor to Santa in season 1 so that he may retire in peace. Because he was hesitant to relinquish control of the North Pole, he first considered his offspring as potential heirs, but no one was interested. As a result, the rest of the sequel will feature Scott searching for a worthy successor, who, once discovered, will let him leave the North Pole and his family to embark on a new journey. With the first 2 episodes offering wit, humor, and pop culture references, the rest of the show is sure to maintain the same tone and intensity. What's more, the season trailer teased the return of fan favorite Bernard. Following up, Jack and Tim liked working on the Disney Plus series. The Santa Clauses was created by Allen and Burditt, who previously collaborated on the comedy Last Man Standing. Collaborating on the series was enjoyable for Burditt since he was struggling with the loss of his mother, and going to set and physically being at the North Pole for a short bit was a wonderful escape for him. Allen had spent years developing the character and creating the personality and mystique of the Christmas world, even going so far as to have the show reference Christmas's religious background. Season 2 of the Santa Clauses would certainly excite Allen's fans and his rendition of the renowned Christmas legend, though it would have to be a narrative worth telling. Allen intended to give loyal franchise fans a sweeter finale than the Santa Claus 3, which he admits had various shortcomings, including a focus on visuals and budget rather than presenting a great narrative. Rather than a pessimistic film pitting a bitter Calvin against Christmas, the series tries to clear things up by focusing on a more positive Calvin, saying everything he cherishes about the holiday. With just 2 episodes currently available, the Santa Clauses must demonstrate that it can overcome the failures of its predecessors. The Santa Clauses must demonstrate that it can overcome the shortcomings of Santa Claus 3 and provide justification for continuing Scott Calvin and his travels as Santa Claus. Disney is known for recurring to its iconic worlds in some way, and it'd be a thrill to have one more go with the franchise. What's more, showrunner Jack Burditt teases the chance of a second season. Season 2 of the Santa Clauses is a possibility, says showrunner Burditt. Allen reprised his role as Scott Calvin or Santa Claus for the Disney Plus original series. After the events of the prequel series, Calvin loses his holiday spirit and decides to retire as Santa, but when things aren't going as planned, he's compelled to save Christmas once more. The miniseries is meant to elaborate on Calvin's tale by explaining how being Santa is essential to him and maybe provide closure to his character's destiny. Even though the series is meant to be limited, Burditt told Deadline that there's scope for more stories to be told in the future. The Santa Claus franchise has become a huge Disney mainstay because it's one of their more recognizable IPs that is highly linked with the festive season. With the franchise still doing well, it wouldn't be unusual if a second season was revealed unexpectedly. Up next, the sequel continues the vague rules of the original Santa Claus. Santa's rules just keep getting weirder. Scott Calvin is set to step aside as Santa Claus in the series, carrying on Santa Claus's unclear rules. In the 1994 edition of The Santa Claus, the Jungle to Jungle led to cast after Santa accidentally leaps off his rooftop, with Scott becoming his replacement. replacement. Scott's transition into Santa is permitted by a contract known as the Santa Clause, which has gotten increasingly ambiguous and confusing throughout the Santa Claus franchise leading up to Scott's eventual retirement. The comedic terms and conditions of the contract itself pay for tremendous jokes in the Santa Clause, Scott accidentally agreeing to act as the new Santa in throwing on the outfit and riding the sleigh. The issue is that neither Scott nor the audience has been given a detailed description of the contract terms once Scott became Santa. Scott's obligation in the Santa Claus 2 to wed a Mrs. Claus might have been an error by the Santa Clauses' unique elf Bernard and Curtis, but the contract shocks have proceeded from there. The loophole repeatedly referred to in the title of the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, is really where the Santa Claus would become genuinely puzzling. The idea of hopping off becoming Santa is also far too simple a way out for reluctant Santas, and a loophole Scott never used throughout his early Santa hesitance. Scott Calvin's experience as the Santa Claus has revealed him to be a very compassionate and caring Santa. All through the Santa Claus franchise, Scott and the viewers have been at the hands of Santa Claus's whims. Finally, the future of the Santa Claus series. As Scott prepares for old age in the Santa Clauses, the Santa Claus becomes even messier due to a lack of clarification on how long a new Santa Claus is necessary to stay in the post. What started as a lighthearted comment about Scott being tricked into becoming Santa Claus has turned into a real issue for the Santa Claus series, which only the Santa Clauses will be able to address. Apart from Martin Short's Jack Frost's tactics in the Santa Claus 3, how the series landed at Scott's retirement means a source of debate for the narrative. The Santa Claus franchise has become increasingly complicated with each contract extension, to the point that merely being Santa appears to be too difficult to manage without an accidental breach of contract. As an implied torch-passing show from Scott until the next Santa, the current series is prepared to be more transparent in the Santa Claus regulations to the future Father Christmas. The setup will be much unique from how Scott became Santa Claus, with the future Santa stepping into the position not by chance, but by being personally vetted by Scott. Now that should be fun. If the Santa Clauses could bring some consistency to the terms of the contract, the show may finally have some clarity on its central story premise. Perhaps whenever the new Santa Claus film joins the Disney Plus lineup, the series will make use of the opportunity to educate both the new Santa and fans on how the Santa Claus agreement works. That's a wrap for this video. Do you want to know more about the new The Santa Clauses series? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.
I forgot tonight was Christmas Eve.
Well, it's too bad, because then you're probably not gonna want this. Being Santa has meant the world to me. Once a year, I get to spread joy and magic to people everywhere.
You've lost 10 more pounds.
I knew it. You know what I got now? I've got abs. Why are you yelling?
Because when my best friend's laying on the ground and responsive for 15 minutes, I yell.
Listen, I'm not saying I'm gonna retire. The only thing I hate more than gardening is garden gnomes.
No.